Dylan Thomas Sprouse? Question mark. No, Dylan Marlace Thomas. Dylan Thomas is a famous poet who was known for his ridiculous, gaudy actions that were usually fueled by alcoholic rants. Dylan Thomas was born in Swansea, Wales, to his father, David John Thomas, a local teacher who had an English degree from a college in Aberystwyth. His mother, Florence Hannah, a seamstress who worked just right around the corner from where he was born. Dylan grew up speaking both Welsh and English, but preferred English. Thomas was a very he was a quiet and frail kid who shied away from any sports or other activities with the other kids. He preferred to be on his own and just to wander around in nature. Dylan started his formal education at the local grammar school, where he constantly acted out and brought the attention on himself. He then moved on to Swansea Grammar School for Boys, all boys school in Mount Pleasant, where he continued to fail, but he was noted that he would read continually, and he just would find himself alone reading. When Dylan was a teenager, many of his first poems started to come out. He would write it frequently in notebooks that he was given as a present. He wrote over 200 poems in these notebooks, and many of these, almost 50% of these poems, were published during his life. Many of his famous poems were published just as a teenager. Death shall have no dominion, Before I knocked, and The force that through the green fuse drives the flower. During the war, Thomas struggled heavily. He struggled with his friends. He had a lot of friends that he made prior that he had to leave behind when they went to war, and he was unfit for war. This made him very depressed and led him to continue in his drinking habits, where he would eventually find a lot of doom. During this time, though, he did meet his love, Caitlin McNamara, 22-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed dancer. She was a runaway, and they instantly fell in love in a bar, and they just continued their dramatic love affair that would come to a fiery spiral. Throughout Dylan's life, he cheated constantly on her, and he was just an all-around player where he didn't care for her feelings or anyone else's feelings. He only lived for himself. Thomas not only had success in poetry, but he did have a lot of success in broadcasting. He worked for BBC for many years, where he would appear as a guest. His rich, sonorous voice made him a frequent guest, and he became very famous from his talks on the radio. He had several tours in the United States, 4 in total, 3 full tours. He would come, and he was considered a very rowdy guest. He would make a spectacle of himself, often drunk while on stage, and he cheated many times on his wife. That's why she didn't accompany him on his final tour. This was a very declining point in his life. He seemed to have a lot of people die around him, where he was just losing his father. His wife had another abortion. He lost many of his friends during this time, and you could just see that his life was spiraling downhill. He then one night went out and he drank, I believe, 18 whiskeys. It is quoted that he said this is a record, and from there he went into a coma. He was admitted into St. Vincent's Hospital at 2 a.m., and he continued to be in the coma until noon on the 9th of November, where he died. Thomas left a legacy of just being a poetic poet, where he was willing to do anything to make a show and anything for his work.